Cool Figure TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yao Mean of Revolution. Putin versus the small hats and the Satanists. A lot of disgusting things going on. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button. You in the House of Revolution. Like, share, subscribe, support the platform, y'all. This is a tale of good versus evil. A lot of what Epstein was probably doing too had a lot to do with this. Let's get into it.
So now let's look into this post again about Russia seizing the shipment of.
Now, she don't want to say the word because it YouTube algorithm will shut you down, shut your channel down if you say that word that's on the screen that you can get out of children that at once. A lot of people were saying Hollywood wanted, a lot of people in Hollywood was getting to try to stay younger and age. This got a lot to do with what Epstein was doing with a lot of these youth too. But they're saying Russia seizes a ship containing a lot of this stuff on the way to Israel. What's going on here?
The blood that is extracted from terrified children. That's how the substance is created.
She said, and I mean, now being extracted from terrified children, they say when the children are terrified, that makes this substance the most potent. That's why they like to scare the hell out of kids. That's why they like to get, that's why a lot of kids in war zones, they love war zones. A lot of children are terrified. Then they kidnap these children and do away with these children, but they get this substance, this blood out of them. A lot of people in Hollywood, in the rich elite, they love this substance.
In the body, you know, when you're afraid, the body produces that. And what does this do if you don't know? You know, I didn't know any about it. It's 2020 Schmovit era that was waking me up to all of this. People drink it, they get addicted to it, but it keeps them apparently younger. If they stop drinking it, maybe actually let me show you.
Now, if you pay attention to when COVID hit, and a lot of people had to remain indoors, they couldn't move around, and a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of people, they looked like they was aging overnight. Go back, look at a lot of people saying, dang, a lot of these people look like they're aging so fast. Well, a lot of people saying that's because they could not get their hands on this certain substance, and they needed this substance, and a lot of them couldn't get it, and they was showing.
When they stop drinking this, what happens to them? I'm gonna show you one picture now of someone who is very well known. This is unscripted, but it's good because it just came to my mind. So for example, this person who I might create another video about her. I used to love her singing and love her music. I really did. And I met her in person, of course, because I worked in Las Vegas and those fashion boutiques, and she was a frequent client. By the way, as far as client, she was very kind. She had a clothing line for children. That will be in another video, so I will show you that if you haven't seen it already. But that's how you look like. Even they give you a different story that she's sick on this, on that. Those are also the effects. You see a drastic changes in the body and the image. But I'm gonna create a different video about her and about the symbolism and what she's doing. Now, let's go back to the story with Russia seizing that ship. So I wanted really to find out if this is fake news or not the existence of the substance and not Russia being on the good side, but if this particular case was true. And I came across this video from few months ago on Rumble, because I'm not sure if YouTube, even you are able to find anything like this. That's why thank you so much. If you're careful with your comments, please try not to use this word too much or at all. You can say substance or, you know, the red liquid or something, because it really triggers algorithm. And, you know, they demonetize the videos, and I don't want first and foremost to be banned so I can create more videos for you. That's why everyone who donates on PayPal, like Linda yesterday, thank you so much for your donation, and my Patreon supporters as well. It really helps me to keep on going. Let's play this video. Let's take a listen. You will hear about this, and you will hear about from a Russian soldier who, I don't think this is related particularly to the ship. Maybe it is, but I think this is related more to those places in Ukraine where they have been doing those things, generating. I believe that's what they did. I'm not sure if Russia took care of all of those places. Maybe that's why the end of this conflict is very close, because if they cleaned up those laboratories that not only produce the biochemical, you know what, weapons to destroy humanity, but I think in those places they were also doing those kind of things. Let me mute myself, guys. If commercials pop up, I will just be patient with it, and then we play the video.
According to reports, an Israeli-registered private jet was seized within Russian Crimea on November the 17th, with dozens of traumatized children being held captive in atrocious conditions. Battle-hardened Russian soldiers, accustomed to the horrors of war, struggled to maintain their composure as they recounted the gut-wrenching discovery of malnourished children hooked to intravenous drips. Their fragile bodies were systematically drained of blood and adrenal fluid, evidence of a chilling operation fueling the global adrenochrome trade, allegedly with a supply chain running through Israel to the Western world.
We had a lead. We knew the jet was coming in, knew the children were on it, but nothing could prepare me for what we found. The plane sat there, Israeli registered, its engines cold, the hum of the airfield the only sound, except for the crying. The children. I won't ever forget the sound of it. They were malnourished, flesh and bone, some barely breathing, shackled, lifeless, like broken dolls tossed aside. Their bodies were like ghosts. The stench of sickness, of neglect, it hit us the moment we opened the door. I remember one little girl, maybe 5 years old. She was lying there staring at me with these big empty eyes. I didn't know whether to run, to scream, or just break down. All I could do was bend down and tell her she was safe. You know, you hear rumors, you read reports, but seeing it firsthand, it's different. These children weren't just being trafficked. They weren't going to be sold or used as labor. No, they were being harvested. Their blood, their adrenal fluid, they were the product for something called adrenochrome, something so sick, so twisted, I couldn't even comprehend it at first. But that was the reality we faced, and we couldn't let them get away with it. Not this time. As we moved quickly to evacuate the children, I could see it on their faces, the marks on their skin, the signs of what they've been through. And I couldn't help but think how many others are out there just like them. As we pulled the children out, the flight crew tried to make a run for it, but we weren't letting them go. We had them in custody, and they weren't going anywhere. We could already feel the weight of what we had uncovered, the dark web of trafficking that stretched far beyond that plane, beyond that one night. The scale was bigger than any of us had imagined. But in that moment, as we got those kids to safety, I knew we'd done something. We'd stopped one part of the nightmare, at least for now. The jet is gone, the traffickers caught, but the operation, it's still out there. And as long as I breathe, as long as there's breath in those children's lungs, we'll keep fighting to make sure it ends.
Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. The adrenochrome operation has unearthed a web of crimes so atrocious that even seasoned operatives are being left shaken at their discoveries across Ukraine.
Группа, да, получается. собирала детей.
Stop repeating affirmations to manifest. Stop journaling and stop listening to YouTube videos. It's not going
Повезенных, маленьких, от 3 до 6 до 7 лет. И привозила именно вот в этот пункт. Там их раздевали на 1-м этаже, а на втором их раздевали. Как ненужный материал, их просто хранили там в ямах и никуда не вывозили. И вот эти ребята, они, знаете, говорили, как будто они как будто какую-то скотину завалили, поросенка или там кролика. Да? Ну, они, да, привозили. Как будто какая-то ферма, понимаете? Вот эта имплантация. Там, забирали органы. Слышал об этом, но не верил. Пока своими глазами не увидишь, не поймешь. А когда увидишь, не простишь.
President Putin has vowed to follow the evidence wherever it leads, dismantling the sinister child trafficking network and ensuring those exploiting and harming children are brought to justice. According to industry analysts in Russia, the big question is whether they can establish new routes and networks before the Trump regime intensifies its crackdowns on their operations within the United States.
So I'm sure some of you heard this story, some of you haven't. I'm one of those who heard it in pieces, but this is the first time I actually put it together a little bit better. So, you know, it's good to share those informations. I always say I don't think this have enough coverage, and people focus mainly on the military stuff as far as the equipment and strikes and this and that. At the end of the day, that creates the distraction. Meanwhile, other much more even nefarious things are going on that, I don't know, people don't want to talk about, they're afraid to talk about, they don't want to lose the money. And like I said, I'm not sure how YouTube will treat this particular video. So everyone who helps me out, I really appreciate, but you know, I'm taking a chance because you have to bring it out.
And when you think about the Epstein thing, a lot of people wasn't into sexual abuse of children. Some of those people were buying this substance right here from Epstein and the Israelis. I can bet you that. A lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of the rich elite.
I am very aware that there are many people who never heard about those kind of things. And why I think it's important, because we are in a spiritual war. And this is really humanity is at stake. And this is what they have been doing for a very, very long time. And I think the true power lies in us and people who are talking about it, who are opposing it, who are against it, and who want to save those children and any child, you know. Every time, and I don't have children myself, there are many reasons why I don't, if you already jump into assumptions. But I just say this, every time I have this obsession almost now, when I am passing children, I always have this, I would say, a prayer, a thought. I'm thinking about for them to be protected and to never experience anything even close to this and not to be in danger. And when I see, for example, sometimes parents with children, or I see a man with a child, sometimes I have to really stop myself because I'm jumping into these conclusions. Maybe this is like just another pedophile, you know, because you get almost paranoid sometimes. But you can tell, usually you can tell what is the relationship, right? You might be wrong, but that's what happens to me, you know, after some time. I don't know how it is with you guys. You have to pay attention. I personally now, looking back, in some moments in my life, now I recall them and I acknowledge what was happening to certain children, because now I know a little bit more. And that time I didn't know that. So thank you so much for watching, for hitting the like button, thumbs up, subscribing, sharing the videos. I very much appreciate leaving comments down below. And like I said already twice, but I say it again, to everyone who supports my work by becoming my Patreon, locals supporter, channel member, you can join the membership, or who donates on PayPal, huge thank you to all of you. And I only Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. As you can see the title of this video, today this video will bring to you very important topic, and I have prepared a number of videos for you to present to you something that this is all what this fight is about. This is truly good versus evil, light against darkness, God against evil. This is what we are dealing with. This is all about the future of humanity. And let me start with the clip that I came across, I think this morning, that kind of led me on this direction for this video today. And I have very, very good interview that I want to present to you that I came across yesterday that I think everyone should watch. One of the best interviews I came across in a long time. Very important, very informative. So stay all the way to the end. I will present to you that interview that focuses on few very important things, including Russia and Putin as well. So let's start with this first clip that I have for you.
The Russian president says Americans are literally eating each other. Watch
So
this.
President Putin has said a few things that's got me a little rattled, and I think it'll have you rattled as
This
well.
is insane.
Give me a second, let me explain. President Putin of Russia came out on the world stage and he gave a speech. In that speech, he said, I have proof, and this is all alleged. He said, I have proof that the American people are eating each other unbeknownst to them.
Some of us already know
That
this.
we are being fed each other,
Stay weird.
and we have no clue about it.
The Russian president said
I'm sure many of you know about this. Look, McDonald's, for example. But I wanted to find the very video which that person has mentioned in that clip. I couldn't find the video, but I found two things that will connect the dots right here. A while back, that was about 2 years ago, guys, I have recorded a video. This was when actually there was a presidential election in Russia. So I think it was 2 years ago. Time flies, it really does. Well, time does not exist, they say. Anyway, I recorded this video, and this was the time when there was a presidential election in Russia. And I titled this video, Putin says, in one of the interviews that he has given, the West must understand that the vampire ball is ending. And when I came across that interview, I was very interested what he had to say about it, because clearly you cannot be confused what he's saying. Vampire ball is ending. And as always, I have attached down below the link to a video that I wanted to show you, right, with the interview. And that video, surprise, surprise, right here, is no longer available. But what I've done, I actually found that interview, the transcript of it. So let me read you what was said in that interview. This is from, let me show you. This is from Embassy of the Russian Federation of the Republic of Malta. From all the places, the Knights of Malta, that's another story. So let's read this, okay? This is from 2024, from 18th of March. So not 2 years ago, but a year ago. Let's read this, that statement from Putin now, I'm quoting him. Many people in the world are looking at us, at what is happening in our country and in our struggle for our interests. They associate our struggle for our independence and true sovereignty with their aspirations for their own sovereignty and independent development. Now, this is the quote, very important. This is aggravated by the fact, I think I pronounced correctly, aggravated by the fact that there is a very strong desire in the Western elites to freeze the current unjust state of affairs in international affairs. Keep in mind what he's saying here. This is not just political, this is human trafficking too. One more time. There is a very strong desire in the Western elites to freeze the current unjust state of affairs in international affairs. They have spent centuries filling their bellies with human flesh and their pockets with money. But they must realize that that vampire ball is ending. So here is Putin literally just saying this straight, what's going on. And what he's mentioning here, that those Western elites want to freeze the current unjust state of affairs in international affairs. This is not just about sending weapons, creating another war. This is about human trafficking and all those things that I'm going to present to you today. So let's go to the video that I came again across yesterday, connecting the dots, everyone, from a regular American citizen.
Stay spin, folks looking for.
What is it going to take? What is it going to take for us to listen? I'm like sick to my stomach. Okay. I've heard the rumors and I'm guilty of it, taking my kids to go eat at McDonald's. But today took my girls to go get their normal Happy Meals and got a 10-piece for my 6-year-old, and she bit down one of her chicken nuggets and she says that, she hurt her teeth. And so I'm looking at it and I pull this out. She pulls this out. She hands it to me, okay? And I'm freaking out. Baby, where's your tooth? What happened? How'd you lose a tooth? How did you lose a tooth in chicken nuggets? It's not her tooth, y'all. This is not my baby's tooth. But this is a baby's tooth. This was someone's baby's tooth. This is disgusting, and this is what we're eating. This is what we're feeding our kids. This is a human tooth. This is a baby tooth, and I say baby no more than 6 years old. This is a tooth. Y'all, this is a baby tooth, and we're eating this shit. And you motherfuckers are still gonna go continue to eat from there. Look at this. What is it gonna take?
It's not easy to watch. I watched this a few times because in stages, because now I can actually present the video for you. Otherwise, I will not be able energetically. I had to balance my energy. And I started to discover those things about 5 years ago. I'm sure many of you have known this for a very long time. So I am a newbie here, right, in this topic. And I really don't want to be an expert, but I guess God wants me to bring this to you. Now, let's go to Putin again. I hope you really appreciate this video today. And if you do, make sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. It's not easy to talk about this stuff, but this is what the fight is about. This is why to close the border, it's important. I'm talking United States and other places, but in US, that's especially lately. Okay, let's go to Putin. Where is this? Let me find it, guys. Not long time ago, Vladimir Putin permanently outlaws Satanic temple in Russia. Russia has officially deemed the Satanic temple as undesirable in Russia, banning it in its entirety throughout the country. This status essentially prohibits such entities from operating in Russia Their bank accounts are frozen and local branches are shut down. Those found in breach of the law could face fines or even prison sentences under certain circumstances. So the source was RT, and it's from June 24th this year, all right? Let's give it a like, okay? So this is Putin, Russian Federation, not long time ago. Now, I want to take you to, let me just stop sharing. I want to take you to an interview that I came across yesterday. This is a very new interview with two women. I would like to ask you after you finish watching my video, if you have time, or maybe later on today, or maybe tomorrow, to watch this entire video, because it's very, very important. This is not fake news. This is not some delusional BS conspiracy. This is real life. And this is what we are dealing with. This is the evil we are against. So let me play two parts of this interview. The first part will be about what's happening really, as far as those children go, missing ones. And the second part will be, how is it in Russia as far as human trafficking? Something that is a big interest of mine, because I really wanted to know more how Russia is dealing or has dealt with the human trafficking story. So let me take you to this video. The first part, I have the timestamp here, so just give me a moment, everyone. This is on Michael's Jaco channel, and you have two ladies here. Let me start with the first clip. Let's take a listen. Very important interview.
Now, Catherine Austin Fitts, she was in the Bush administration, and she's talking about a $21 trillion black budget that's used to for these underground dumps. And she talked about everything you ladies are talking about, and you know, maybe a little bit more, because they're actually breeding children under there on purpose for a lot of these programs. Did either one of you discover or encounter that?
Well, sort of to add on to what Lynn said, I was used often. The satanic rituals would involve me being completely paralyzed and aware of everything, but unable to fight, and then being raped while I had to watch other children being killed, and the other children would be cut apart, and of course, by that time I was completely dissociated in another planet. So that I remember more about the dissociated adventure than being smeared, absolutely covered with the blood of these other children, which gave me so much guilt. And I was always wondering why I lived and they died. And I think Lynn just said it. I had a home to go to. My parents were making money off of me being used in this way, and the other children had no homes to go to. And there is a place in the archive that the CIA just released, where they write little notes to each other saying, you know, we really can't keep using American citizens in this way, because those kids, some of them might grow up and they might sue us. And so their conclusion out of these little cute little notes they wrote to each other was they would start bringing in foreign children. And this is the beginning of mass kidnapping and bringing kids across the southern border. Like we just, and this was in the early 60s. So, wow. And we just saw an admitted 300,000 children brought across the southern border. And the thing is that they decided that, you know, they brought children from all over the world, and you can bet that children that are coming across the border now are probably a high percentage from Ukraine. Anywhere there's war or conflict, they're probably Palestinians and Ukrainians. Anywhere where children are vulnerable, they're collecting children. But then they come across the border in the no home category. And there was a conscious decision that how to make the American public accept this. And they decided that it would be okay if they were all called Mexicans, and so it became like a psyop to condition the American mentality to accept that it was okay to sacrifice Mexicans. And we saw this when they came across the southern border, 300,000 children. They had to admit to it. A whistleblower blower produced the documents, produced the $47 million contract that was awarded to a van company in Virginia. And then they claim they don't know where the kids go. Right. Of course, they know where they went. It's the same van company they were using back when I was involved in this. But then they're all listed as Mexicans. And so their attitude is, oh, no, it's all right. They're just Mexicans. So that's not all right. Nothing about that is all right.
So as you can see, guys, in the title of this interview, Michael Jaco titled it CIA Family Raised Dr. Juliet. So this is the lady who was just talking, Juliet Engel, for MK Ultra child trafficking. So she survived that abuse because her family, as she mentioned in this clip, was making money of her being used as such. Now, she also lived in Russia, and she is going to talk about how is human trafficking in Russia, how does it look like or looked like. And this is very interesting and very important, and I hope you have time to take a listen to what she had to say. Let me just move a little bit forward here, find the right spot, the right time. Okay, 1 second, everyone. So before I play it, let me mute myself and let's continue. This is Russia dealing with human trafficking.
So you went to Moscow, and
Yes.
you went there when it was still the Soviet Union.
Yes.
So do you think there is a difference between the Soviet Union and the child trafficking that you witnessed and tried to help overcome? That's a great story. I definitely want to read your book about that. That sounds fascinating. But also, now that it's Russia, had things changed at all, or is it still
completely
the same?
it's completely different. In fact, we are more like the old Soviet Union than they are, and the Russian Federation. It's called Russian Federation because it's made up of over 150 different ethnic groups, but they are united as the country Russia. And it became a deeply religious country. When I was first there, religion was outlawed, and the practices there, because religion was outlawed and there was a complete lack of any kind of church life in the communities, or no one was raised to be a moral person. So it was a wild mess of a country, and they knew that. And one of the things that Putin has done that has made him so popular is that he restored religion. So he's a Christian. He's the first Christian president. The rest have all been Ukrainian Jews. But he was the first actual Russian Slavic Christian president. And he brought back religion. He, and not just Christianity, but all religion that existed at the time of the revolution, and when all religion was banished, could legally return. And he's built over 30,000 churches, mosques, synagogues. All religion that's real religion is respected. And interestingly, Russia just passed a law banning Satanism.
Wow.
So making any kind of satanic cults illegal in schools, and specifically addresses the fact that the United States has Satan clubs in schools, and they're looking at the satanic rituals, which are the pedophiles being able to do lewd dances and spread books in grammar schools. They specifically list that in their education, saying this will not be done in Russia. This is completely illegal. Huge support. The public supports the bill. Sort of the less religious and the more satanic and evil the West looks, the more they retreat to traditional religion. And it's completely different. It's an entirely different country. And when I first went there, Ukraine and Russia were pretty much indistinguishable. They were sort of all one thing. And as time progressed, Russia went towards family values and religion and restoring religion and being quite conservative. And Ukraine went the opposite direction. It went completely woke. It's still completely woke, and it's suffering terribly from that, from what I can see. So
you heard from her. One sentence, I just want to say what she said that I personally don't agree with. I'm not an expert as far as Russia goes, but I don't think this is accurate. She said that no person in the time of Soviet Union was raised to be a moral, that no one was raised to be a moral person. I completely disagree with that statement. Completely. Okay, let's just leave it there. But what she's talking about, it's very on point right here. And I always wondered how Russia is dealing with this situation. How Russia is dealing with this very, very difficult situation. And now this also presents you a little bit different side of this conflict in Ukraine. I'm not justifying killing people, but what I'm saying is what has been going on there, right? The tunnels, the smuggling, the border, etc. Just think about it. Now, I have 2 more clips to play for you. The first one is from Jim Caviezel, who was in that movie Sound of Freedom, that is talking about human trafficking. So let me play what he had to say about children and what's going on. Again, many of you know this topic, some of you know. I invite you to do your own research, look deeper into it, and this will put everything in perspective, everything. All those connections Clintons have, Haiti, Epstein, all of this is connected, guys. So just ask yourself, who wants the border between US and Mexico to be open? Sorry, it wasn't this video, but there is one more as well I want to show you. So let me find this first. I have a lot of videos for you today, everyone. So let's see if I can find it. You know what? I'm going to play a different one for you. I'm going to play the one with Isaac Kappy first, and I will be looking for the other one while this one is presented to you. Let's.
That this comes out into the open, because we are going to change the way everything works. Steven Spielberg is a pedophile. Yep. See how easy that was, Corey? I didn't need $10 million. I just said it. I want to get into like the bigger picture, how this stuff is all connected. Because when you're talking about like really elite levels, the name of the game is blackmail. So they want something on you that they can hold over your head so they can basically own you and tell you what to do. And they film it. And then they own you. So that's what runs the whole system, basically. They want compromised people because they're easy to control. You know, a lot of people, they'll just go along with it and do whatever just for fame or money or accolades. Some people are just like really into the evil shit. Oh, I'm not going to talk about Tom Hanks either, who is also a pedophile. Tom Hanks, folks, is a pedophile. I'm sorry if this is kind of bursting your bubble. All this information is new, because at the top levels of wealth, of power, the very top levels, these people are just sick and psycho. Look into the Rothschild family. Do some research. You heard it's cannibals. Yeah, there is cannibalism. That's you know, the higher you go, the more sick it gets.
I think many of you remember Isaac Kappy, mysteriously killed, like someone put in the comments. I remember it was, I think, 2020 when, you know, there were actually quite few good things about Shmovid, because in that time, a lot of stuff was coming out and people started to do a lot of research. We were almost bombarded with those things. I never thought that such a satanic, horrific reality existed. I know some of you who've been watching maybe David Icke or other people, you thought like he's crazy and, you know, some other things. But now I think it's not going to take a long time, like this knowledge is going to become world known. Most people will know about it, especially in our lifetime, because this is what we are fighting with. Now, last clip, I found it with Jim Caviezel. Let's take a listen. I really appreciate his acting. He's such a great actor. And this was from Sound of Freedom. He was an actor in that movie. Let's take a listen what he had to say.
Actually, you have adrenaline in your body. I'll just simplify it. And when you are scared, you produce adrenaline. If a child knows he's going to die, his body will secrete this adrenaline. It's the worst horror I've ever seen, is screaming alone, even if I never, ever saw it. It's beyond, and these people that do it, there'll be no mercy for them. Essentially, you have.
Before I close this video, I want to show you, I want to point at actually at what is shown here. Well, this is the graphic. This is Hillary Clinton. Of course, she's deeply involved in this with Huma Abedin, who, by the way, just married Alex Soros, and that is George Soros' son. It's all connected, everyone. I know you know this, but I'm just saying, those of you who don't, you can do your research. Here you see this in this square, you see Tom Hanks, and you see a ball, and you see a face, a red face that is actually made of blood. This is from the movie Cast Away. I remember that movie very well. He ended up on an island by himself, on an island. And here is, I think this ball was called Wilson. And you know what's interesting? Because his wife, Rita Wilson, is that's her last name. Anyway, here is Ellen DeGeneres. And I remember exactly when this was taking place in 2020. You know, guys, okay, before I tell you what I want to tell you, personal story. Here is the same kind of sign, the same mark on her blouse, on her hoodie. And behind her, I think there was like a ball or, yeah, kind of like a ball that had a lot of keys in it. So that's like another symbol in that group. But now the true story, I'm going to close this now. Now the true story, so this is from Sacrificing Children. If you didn't connect the dots yet, I'm just telling you. I lived in Santa Barbara, many of you know. And there was a place,
My wife and I are like, what did somebody put a mask on somebody else and switch him out? I mean, this isn't the guy that I voted for, because nobody should be able to say, oh, that guy, this is old news. What are you guys stupid for even thinking about that? No, this is really important for so many Americans on the right and the left. This shouldn't be a political issue. This is about the children. This is the one thing that we can all come together on. And you want to lose the support of your base and piss off the rest of them, then throw this out to the wind saying this isn't a big deal, because this is a really big deal. And all we're asking for is transparency. Yeah, they may play with the words a little bit and say, there's no client list. Well, guess what? Maybe it's not called a client list. How about the flight logs of everybody who was there?
We know there's flight logs.
Absolutely, we know. And his phone's got to have contacts and friends and people he's been in connection with, and all of the evidence that we do have is proving that there was some very nefarious things going on. If there was really 14 terabytes of video footage, and now they're telling us, the only video footage, the only video stuff that we have is the stuff that he downloaded, child porn. No, he didn't download 14 terabytes of child porn. This was cameras that was set up, and all of us know we're not stupid. We know that powerful organizations have used blackmail for hundreds of years to control the narrative, to control the votes. And just like I said on the show before, if you want to control the votes forever of a senator, of a congressman, of a federal judge, you want to control their votes forever. You want to control a billionaire. You get them on film with a 12-year-old. And there's nothing they won't do to make sure that that stuff doesn't get out. And so this is the reason why we haven't seen the stuff on Diddy either. The most valuable thing that they got on the whole Diddy thing was gathering all of that video evidence. Why? Not so that they could take Diddy down. It's so that they could control everybody that was there. This has been in the playbooks of agencies in the US and foreign agencies that we could or couldn't go there, depending on what you want, that's been in their playbook for a long, long time. This is how they control those who are in power. A long time ago, they would use homosexuality because it was such a taboo subject that if they could get a political leader, on film in a homosexual situation, that was the leverage that they needed. Now we live in a world where that's commonplace, and that's not the leverage. The only leverage that is viable to them is this with kids. This is what's happening. And so this has been in their playbook for a long time. This is what's happening with the Epstein situation. And we as Americans need full transparency. I'm okay with the fact that Trump was likely on the jet. I've been on a lot of jets. Just because I've been on a jet with some guy who does bad things doesn't mean I'm doing those bad things, right? That's okay. It's not going to send you over the edge if the flight log is there. But if you've got the flight log of 20 times that somebody went to the island, and you've got the video evidence of it, and not only that, but we can go into depth about whether he was committed suicide or not. I am a 100%, not 90%. I'm 100% convinced that Jeffrey Epstein did not commit suicide.
Well, I'll back you up on that. I've been saying it all along. I was in that cell. That's where I was for 7 months, and there's no way he could have committed suicide. You couldn't even do it. You'd have to be a midget to even try because of what's available to you in that cell. It wasn't possible. And the other fellow there, Baden, who was also at the autopsy, said it was more of a homicide.
Yeah.
Strangulation. There's no way he could have committed suicide. No way, Paul. And I don't. And listen, I have no horse in this race. I mean, a lot of people have said, well, you're in Trump's pocket because you don't want to say everything that's gone on. I said, that's so ridiculous because I support somebody's policies. I don't need to be in Trump's pocket. He doesn't need me. I'm just telling you what I feel. There's no way that he committed suicide. No way, based upon my experience spending time in that cell. I spent 29 months altogether in solitary. So I know what it is. I know how those cameras work. I know how those COs patrol the area, and I know what's available to you in that cell. So there's no way. So listen, and I also heard, I did a deep dive on him, that they collected thousands of videos that were the cameras were directed on each bedroom, thousands of videos. Well, why are we not seeing them? And if they want to protect the young women, we'll blur their faces out. We need to see who they were in bed with. And the fact that they're hiding this, boy, it's just terrible.
It is. And more evidence comes out that we are being lied to. For example, the raw footage of the jail cell, right? Raw footage. And Wired magazine said, no, we've done an analysis on this. This is not raw footage. This was something that multiple videos got put through an Adobe program and edited in a way where now we see what we're seeing. No, show us the real stuff, guys. Just be honest. Somebody changed something when it came to those videos. And of course the last minute thing, there's a whole,
2 minutes they lost.
Yeah. So, since the 70s, there's 2 minutes that were lost there on every, no, they have to think that the American people have their head in the sand for us to accept this stuff. We can't. And more than anything, we need transparency. We need to trust our government. Back in the 50s, 60s, there was a high level of trust, and that started to go down in the 70s, 80s. And I think it's at the lowest point ever, where the average American does not trust their political leaders, doesn't trust the system, doesn't trust their doctors. There is so much that we have been lied to. This is the great deception, is what I call this time that we're living in right now. And it's time for us to stand up and say, no, we're done being deceived. We want transparency. And yes, it may hurt a lot of people on the right and the left. It might hurt our markets. That's okay. We'll recover from it. What we're not going to recover from is continuing to live in a state where we can't trust our government leaders.
Yeah, Paul, I don't know if it's gone so far in that direction that we can ever bring it back. I really don't. I think we have to, social media is what's raised the awareness of this to people. Because, it gets me, these politicians, they just lie on video and on social media. They don't even care anymore. It's not like it doesn't even bother them anymore. There was a time when we didn't see that. They had look, when I was dealing with politicians on the street, and I did, and they were taking money from us, but they were very careful about it. They didn't want to advertise. They didn't want to be known about anything. Today, it doesn't seem like they care. So it's gone so far to the other direction. And to mention something, I recall the scene in The Godfather when they wanted to, get that politician in order. They put him in bed with a young woman and had it on tape.
Yeah.
I mean, so you're right. I mean, this is something they've been doing forever, and they're continuing it.
There's a book I read like 30 years ago called The CIA's Book of Dirty Tricks. And is very clear. Sexual blackmail is right at the top of the list. It's been at the top of the list for the CIA, for the Mossad, for country. And that doesn't make me anti-Semitic in any way. I've got some wonderful friends that are Jewish, but it's important that all of us, that Israel, that America, that all of us hold our agencies responsible for their tactics in using this kind of blackmail, especially when it involves innocent children. When they're using this kind of blackmail to control, we need to stand up and say, we're done.
So, Paul, let me ask you, based upon your experience, do you think that both in the Diddy case and the Epstein case, they could be holding on to this material, this evidence that they have, just to blackmail other leaders and other wealthy people that are involved in this? Because look, people that were going to Epstein Island and the people involved with Diddy, they weren't poor people. They weren't middle class. These were elitists. These were people with money and power and some form of life that they're involved in. Do you think they're holding these for that reason?
100%. 100%. Because, you let that out, you lose all of those years of control tactics. So you lose everything. Now you have to corrupt a bunch of new leaders that come in. It is much better if you're an agency that wants to control in that way. It's much better to figure out how to keep them in place and have the strings attached to them.
So it's very possible. I mean, I've seen this, but without the very, very hard evidence, we don't know. But it's very possible he was working with the CIA or with Mossad. We know Ghislaine's Maxwell father was very deeply involved. I think he either committed suicide, he was murdered as a result of that. So it's very possible he was tied up with either or both of these organizations and working to get this blackmail evidence on people.
Absolutely. There's been multiple people that have been in high positions of power who have said that. It was the district attorney in South Florida,
Acosta, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he says this is over my pay grade. This guy is an agency asset, right? Meaning they're using him, they're behind him, and there's so many red flags. I came from the finance world.
Mhm.
Okay, I know what it takes to build a multi-billion-dollar investment fund. Epstein didn't have it. He didn't. He had a whole bunch of favors. He literally, and the whole story. I mean, literally, he started out getting a job as a teacher at a school,
Dalton, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that was run by Barr's father. Now,
Mhm.
here's the crazy thing. His father, I think his name was anyway, he wrote a book. He wrote this fictional book about an alien race that was into pedophilia, that was abusing children and using that as a control thing to be able to control the world and everything else. He published this book. This was the head of this school.
Mhm.
So the same time that Epstein is there, we've got this weird situation where the head of the school publishes this pedophile type of a book. I believe that he was beginning to be groomed at that point.
Wow.
At that point, realizing he was into that kind of thing. There was multiple things that were signs. And then, even when he was arrested, he was arrested in Florida. He ends up basically he had 12 hours a day that he could have free reign. He could just literally leave the cell for whatever he wanted to. He told the officers that were watching over him that they had to wear suits when they were escorting him anywhere, so it wouldn't look like he had police officers with him. He was running the show. The only way that you run the show like that is if you've got 100%. Some power way above the pay grade of the district attorney of Southern Florida. Period.
100%. That leads even more credence to the fact that he didn't commit suicide because he got out of it off easy the first time. He knew what he still had available to him, on other people. He would have figured he would have got off this time also, So, Paul, let me ask you this, because you've been working with this for a while. These people that abuse or are into pedophilia, they have to be wired differently. I mean, as a father of 7 children, a grandfather of 7 children, I don't understand it. I mean, have you ever talked to one of these people, and is there something, are they wired differently? I mean, I just don't get it. I just don't.
Here's what I've seen, and this is the case in the Epstein situation. And I mentioned this on our interview before, but the common thread that I saw with these traffickers and the perpetrators was an enormous amount of arrogance and greed and lust. And what happens is that we've all heard the saying that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is what's happening, is that a lot of these guys have, they've already climbed these mountains. They've already hired prostitutes. They've already whatever else in the what's the next thrill. A man becomes super dangerous when he's got all of the arrogance, greed, and lust, and he gets bored in some way. So that's number one. Number two, there is there's a lot of cases that get swept under the rug when people come out and talk about how you can call it selling your soul to the devil. You can call it whatever you want to. When an agreement is made and saying, okay, yeah, guess what? You've got some talents. We can help you. You want unlimited money. You wanted unlimited control. You wanted to be able. You want to be this senator. You want to be in this place. That's okay. We're going to help you get there, but we need this and this on you to be able to make it happen. And so some of these times it's not just them getting drunk or getting them high or whatever else and having to make a mistake. These are conscious decisions in exchange for that power. In fact, there's a book, and again, guys, don't get me wrong on this. I'm not anti-Semitic in any way. I've got wonderful friends who are Jewish, and we spend a lot of time with them. There's a book called Pawns in the Game. Pawns in the Game, written by William Carr. almost 100 years ago. He was in high-level military intelligence, and he'll drop a truth bomb at the beginning of each one of the chapters of really where the control mechanisms are in our world, and who's behind them, and then he'll spend the next chapter in improving what he just dropped. And the truth bombs that he throws out are things like I'm going to call them the agreements, the covenants with the Luciferian order that people like the Rothschilds made in the 1700s. And then he provides evidence of this. And what it is, okay, the agreement is they're going to have full control of the financial system, of the media, etc. And they're going to take humanity down this road of using sexual blackmail and other things to be able to put us in a position where we lose our fundamental moral values, where we separate from a connection with God. Even World War I, World War II, and then eventually World War III, orchestrated by these ultra elites. We think that the movie stars we know, or the president, or the these billionaire families are elites. No, those guys are paupers compared to the guys who are really making the decisions, who are worth so much money. I mean, more money than Elon times 10, some of these families, but we don't know about it because they're the ones behind the banking organizations, etc.
I have a question for all my friends and followers. Have you tried my wine yet? In the last 2 years, we've made tremendous progress with Franzese wine, and it's really all thanks to your support, and obviously because people are finding out we have a great wine at a great price. In 2025, we aim to become a national brand, and I want all of you to be a part of it. Every bottle you buy, every story you share builds more than a brand. It fuels a movement. The story of our wine is one of people having second chances and of lives being transformed. That's the truth. So go to my website, franzesewine.com, and get your bottle today. Salud, my friends.
When you have made it such a focal point, and the MAGA have made it such a focal point, not doing what you said you'd do in terms of releasing the files, and let's not forget that Trump was prevaricating even before the election. He was asked, I think it was on Fox News, would you release the JFK files? Yes. The Martin Luther King files? Yes. The Epstein files? Yes. Well, a bit different with them. Yeah, I bet it is, mate. Because what's sickened me, Sean, about the hijacked alternative media, and there's some fantastic people in the alternative media, fantastic people doing some fantastic work. But I'm talking about those that get all the algorithmic support, that don't get shadow banned, and are basically the stars of the new alternative media. And the way they have sought to cover, I'll call it the MAGA media now, because that's what it is. They've sought to cover Trump's back. I mean, you had Alex Jones, who I think has been an absolute bloody disgrace to the alternative media now for a long time, with his Trump support and his efforts to explain away the otherwise unexplainable, and to defend the indefensible. But he was almost in tears when the announcement was made, as you say, that there are no files and it's all shut. Thank you, goodbye, nothing to see here. But it weren't long before he was plying his trade again, in trying to make some excuse for why the files weren't being released. I mean, I think his first effort was that Trump was holding back the files because he was blackmailing the deep state. And then I saw another one where the question was, is Trump being blackmailed by the deep state? I mean, talk about disappearing up your own backside when you've got to face the bloody facts. And they are that Epstein and Trump were close friends for 10 to 15 years. And Trump would have known what Epstein was doing. I mean, hello, but did nothing. And the latest thing, when he was on the plane, I think he said it when he was in Scotland as well, was that he ditched Epstein when Epstein started taking his staff from Mar-a-Lago, young girls. And he was asked if he was talking about people like Virginia Giuffre, formerly Roberts, and he agreed he was. Well, that happened, in 2000, and it was involving not Jeffrey Epstein directly, but Ghislaine Maxwell, who approached Virginia at Mar-a-Lago. And Epstein was invited to Trump's wedding in 2005. 5 years. And by the way, the 5 years when most of the allegations against Epstein, that 5 years they relate to. And it was a property deal that brought an end to their relationship when Epstein claims that Trump screwed him in a property deal in Palm Beach. But the whole story makes no sense. You've got all these videos of them together, these pictures of them together over a period of time. He lives Epstein about a mile down the bloody road from Mar-a-Lago. There's no way that Trump didn't know what he was doing, and he did nothing. I mean, at that level alone, we can take it as read. Anything above that, well, we'll see. But the whole story is obviously, I mean, it's like the Wall Street Journal ran a story about the fact that in May, the Department of Justice told Trump that he was in the files, he was in the documents. And suddenly it went from the files don't exist to the Democrats have doctored them. Oh, you mean they put your name in, Donald? Oh yeah, Democrats did that. Yeah, oh come on, man. But you know, when I read a book. It was first written during the first term of Trump, but it's ever so relevant to the second. It's called the Cult of Trump, and it's written by a guy, Steve Hassan, I think his name is, who was a Moonie. He was in the Moonie cult a long time ago, and I think he got quite high in the Moonie cult, and then eventually, in his words, he got deprogrammed. And he then went on to study to become a psychologist, psychiatrist, specializing in freeing their minds from cults. And he wrote this book, The Cult of Trump. There's things in it that I don't agree with on other things, not Trump. I think he sees cults everywhere, but to an extent. But on Trump, the guy is absolutely spot on. He's a cult leader. And what happens with your Jim Joneses is the cult members become so mesmerized by them that they'll make an excuse for their behavior, however bad it is. And that's what we've been seeing. There are people in the MAGA who voted for Trump who are going, hold on a minute, this is outrageous. I'm not having this. Fine. Good reaction. But there are others, the real inner core, who are running around making excuses for him. And that's a classic expression of a cult. And like you say, in terms of the prison in New York where he died, seems to have died. You don't know what the bloody hell's going on. Nothing would surprise you. But I don't know whether you saw this CBS investigation report into the prison cameras. Of course, only one was working that night. And that's the footage they released from the DOJ and the FBI. But as CBS point out, that camera only shows a certain part of the floor outside of Epstein's cell. And they point out that you could get in without being seen by that camera. And when you think that at the time that his demise, shall we say, that his brother hired a forensic pathologist who was a former medical officer with New York State, who said, "This is looking to me like it's a murder, a strangulation, and not a suicide, because certain bones were broken that would not be broken in a suicide, but would be in a strangulation," which he said it was clear to him from what he saw on Epstein or with Epstein, is that huge force, his words, were used to kill him, to strangle him, in his view. And so nothing in this whole story adds up. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me, I lived through this and observed this, Watergate. What happened with Watergate during the Nixon regime is there was a break-in at Democratic headquarters. And we had, of course, the Bernstein and Woodward stories appearing in the Washington Post, thanks to someone they called the Deep Throat. And it took this sequence whereby there would be denials from the Nixon regime. More would come out, more denials, but the denials were getting less credible. More came out, more denials, less credible. And eventually Nixon had to go. And there was an insider there, Henry Kissinger, who was clearly orchestrating this when you look back at the background. And there'll be people, I'm sure, in the Trump regime that are seeking to undermine him as well now, as a result of this.
David, it gets even worse, though. And I'm glad you mentioned Virginia, because the survivors we've collaborated with, Virginia, Maria Farmer, Juliet Bryant, they all look up to you. And you're keeping Virginia's spirit alive and her mission alive in what you're saying. So we appreciate that. And it's an absolute slap on the face, as we saw with Virginia's family yesterday, that Ghislaine Maxwell, it looks like she's going to get either a sentence reduction, a pardon, or some kind of, she's going to fall through the cracks in the league.
Revolutionary salute to our brother Golden Mask for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, soldiers. Salute.
Legal system. I mean, Trump, the administration has seen the backlash so far about the nonsense they've made up. And now they're going to go one step further. They've visited her in jail. They've not visited the survivors and spoke to the survivors. And now she might get out, and she's supposed to speak to Congress on the 11th. I mean, what is going on that they could possibly do that?
Well, let's not forget that Todd Blanche, the number 2 at the Department of Justice, is Trump's lawyer. He worked as Trump's lawyer before he got appointed to that post. And he went to interview Ghislaine Maxwell alongside Maxwell's lawyer, who is a personal friend. They appear on the same podcast together and tell each other how wonderful they are. And what you've got is Ghislaine Maxwell, who knows the score. Now, this is a lady who refused to testify in her own case because she, I guess, didn't want to incriminate herself. I didn't think the cross-examination would go well. And now suddenly she is apparently willing to talk. Now, if you know what she knows, and it's indicated that she will reveal it, and what she will reveal will be dependent on whether she gets a pardon or not, or whether she gets leniency or not, then you want to keep her on side. And I found it interesting that Michael Wolff, the not just the many times biographer of Trump, but also interviewed Epstein at length, hours and hours and hours and hours of tapes, he said, that because I think Epstein wanted him to do a book on him. That what Wolff said is that his contacts in the White House say that they believe that the letter said to be between Trump and Epstein and his 50th birthday, orchestrated by Ghislaine Maxwell, was leaked by the family, the Maxwell family, to, in Wolff's words, be a shot across the bow to the Trump and Trump regime to say, we've got stuff, what are you going to do about it, in effect? And it was in the aftermath of that letter being published by the Wall Street Journal, that of Murdoch, that suddenly Todd Blanche is dispatched to a jail in Florida to interview Ghislaine Maxwell. I mean, what we have to do is keep our eye on the ball, see what makes sense and what doesn't of the evidence, become aware of the evidence. And also, this is crucial, absolutely crucial. And it's what has done for the mainstream of the alternative media. If you're a journalist, and you know, I've been a journalist since the 70s. I'm just a different kind since 1990. I don't have editors to say that can't be published. But if you're a journalist, the last thing you are is politically partisan. That is the end of you as a journalist, because now you're not filtering the evidence and saying, okay, what do I make of this evidence? You're filtering it through your political allegiance. And when an alternative journalist, in brackets now, or in quotes, like Alex Jones, is extraordinarily partisan towards Trump and Musk too, there's no way that you are going to dispassionately look at the evidence if it's bad for your guy. You might have to admit a few things because it's so blatantly obvious, but you're going to try your best you can to spin it. And when I look at this hijacked alternative media, I look at the Russell Brands, I look at the Weinsteins, I look at Tucker Carlson and these people who basically, with others, got Trump in the White House the second time. Without them, it wouldn't have happened. And why did this hijack happen? And like I say, I'm not saying that everybody's done it because they know what they're doing. A lot of them, most of them, are just promoted because they don't know what they're doing. But they have a limit on how they see the world and what they'll talk about. And also, if you can make them financially dependent on supporting Trump and the MAGA way of seeing the world, then you got them financially as well. It's like, what is it? There's a guy called Upton Sinclair who said words to the effect, it's hard to get people to see something when their salary depends on them not seeing it. And so what you've had is this partisan MAGA media who have promoted a candidate. There's others. The guy called Ian Carroll promoted Trump. They all did. Candace Owens, for a very long time, was a Trump promoter. And she was an Israel promoter before she changed tack. And so you can't be a journalist, a dispassionate journalist, who is dispassionately looking at the evidence and calling out falsehoods, whoever is the source of the falsehoods, if you are in any way a partisan supporter of one political side. And like I say, I'm always come from, since the early 1990s, the position that it's a one-party state, and therefore they're both vehicles for the same end. And I'll give you an example of that. You had, like I say, the Gateses and the Kurzweils and the Schwabs pushing how wonderful it will be if we can fuse humans with artificial intelligence. And then you've had Elon Musk. And Elon Musk came along, and there were people in the alternative media that were calling him out as a transhumanist who was pushing the AI agenda. And then he bought Twitter. No, he was allowed to buy Twitter because they were saying, and it was true, the deep state controls Twitter, and what can be said on it, and who's allowed on it. Yeah, true. So that means the deep state had Twitter exactly where it wanted it, right? Oh yeah. Well, we're going to release the Twitter files just to show you. Yeah, the deep state controlled it. Okay, so why did they sell it to Musk then, who was the self-proclaimed free speech absolutist? He's not, but he proclaimed it. And what happened as a result? I knew it was a scam when he bought it because I've been tracking Trump for years. Musk, well, Trump as well, but Musk for years before that. And I could see how his companies were ticking the boxes of the World Economic Forum agenda, and the World Economic Forum is just a front for the global cult anyway. And from the moment he bought Twitter, allowed to buy Twitter, and turned it into X, there was this phenomenal transfer of perception of him by this alternative media. Suddenly he's one of us now. He's letting a few people in back, and they're all great. Yeah, it's wonderful. But then they announced that they believe in freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. That if it's lawful but awful, you'll find it very difficult to find it on Twitter X. And they start shadow banning those people who are calling them out and promoting those who are promoting the MAGA media agenda and the Trump agenda. And suddenly, Musk is being given a free ride, even though he's promoting the AI agenda more and more and more now, but he's been doing it for a long time. They're giving him a free ride because he's one of us now. Now, let's look at this. The hard sell from your Gateses and your Kurzweils and your Schwabs has been, we need to fuse with artificial intelligence because we'll be gods, basically. And so along comes Elon Musk, and he plays the skeptic. He's not, but he plays the skeptic. And he says, oh, I'm very worried about AI and what it could do. And that's appealing to the MAGA base because they're very skeptical as well. But then came a crucial point where Musk said, but it's inevitable. Now, that's a massive word in perceptual control and manipulation. Because when you're seeking to stop something, you want to stop it. Once you accept that what you want to stop is inevitable, now you're going into a completely different mode, which is to mitigate how bad it's going to be. So something really broke there. The waters broke there. If you accept that it's inevitable. And Musk said it's inevitable, and if we don't fuse with AI, then humans will be phased out. They'll disappear. So, okay, question. Mr. Gates, what's the outcome of your hard sell? Well, humans get fused with AI. And Mr. Musk, what's the outcome of your soft sell? Well, humans get fused with AI. Exactly. You're just playing a different excuse for different mentalities. And so now we are seeing this coming together of your Musks and your Thiels and your Mark Andreessens and all these other people, including David Sachs, who was appointed as the AI czar by Trump and crypto czar. They're coming together with Altman and all these other people. They may not like each other, all of them, though most of them do, but their goal is the same. And we're seeing the Trump administration introducing it. So in the end, you know, the entire conspiracy is control of perception. All of it. Everything that you see, including censorship, is about control of perception. If you control perception, you control that person's behavior. You control their perception of a deadly virus during. You control the fact that they will do what you say to protect themselves from the deadly virus you've convinced them exists. And so perception is the stadium in which the whole thing's played out. And what's happened with Epstein and the furore over that from the, well, at least significant chunks of the MAGA base, is that they've lost control of perception that they had before, which is Trump's on our side and Trump is our savior. He ain't.
We're on episode 30. So it's time maybe. We talked about the whole Kay Johnson thing. I went down the deepest of deepest of deep rabbit holes today, to the point where it's like, I got to stop going down this rabbit hole. If you're not familiar with the story, you have to go back to 2016. There was a woman who accused Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, by the way, of doing very bad things to her when she was a teen model. And subsequent to her initial lawsuit, which was denied, and then she filed again, and she filed a third one. And supposedly after she filed this third one, she was expected to appear at a news conference in Los Angeles. But that appearance was abruptly canceled. And the lawyer who organized the event, Lisa Bloom, said the accuser had received threats and was too frightened to show up. She's had a couple of different versions of the lawsuit. The most recent one that she filed said that she attended a series of parties at the home of Jeffrey Epstein, and during those parties, crazy things happened. She's used Jane Doe. She used Katie Johnson. A New Jersey attorney who represented Johnson in late 2016 said recent attempts to reach her, and that was in 2019, have revealed she disconnected her telephone number. Nobody knows where she went to. Now, when she bailed on the press conference, at the same time, the Daily Mail published what they said was an interview with Katie and some photos of Katie Johnson. And they said she had a history of DUIs, of drug arrests, and real estate. She had been in that, and she hurt her spine. The story goes that she was an aspiring model in 1994. When after a string of unsuccessful meetings with agencies in New York City, she was at a Port Authority bus terminal getting ready to make her cross-country trip back home. Instead, a woman told Johnson how she could make money and modeling connections attending parties. It was at these parties, allegedly featuring other people and wealthy guests, that she had to be with Donald Trump. And it was quite the story. And her lead attorney, Thomas Mager, of New Jersey, filed a one-page notice dismissing the third and final lawsuit. No explanation was given. But the first suit was filed in federal court in Riverside, California, in April of 2016 by someone acting without an attorney and using the name Katie Johnson. And that suit named both Trump and Epstein. Now, subsequent news reports after it raised doubts about who filed the suit, because Johnson claims she had just $300 in assets and that she was living at a home in 29 Palms, California. But Radar Online did some digging and reported neighbors said the home had been foreclosed upon and vacant since its owner died the previous year. Now, it's very, very interesting. I mean, 29 Palms, it is out in the middle of nowhere, but there's a big Marine base there. So it's possible that, there had been a home or something like that. Okay. And a U.S. District Court judge dismissed the case a month later, ruling that Johnson's complaint didn't raise valid claims under federal law. Said the suit cited a criminal statute that doesn't give rise to civil damages, and that the civil statute Johnson cited only applied to actions based on race-based or class-based animus. Now, this is what they call improper. The person did it themselves, right? They didn't have an attorney. And when you read the complaint, you can tell it's not done by an attorney, because there's certain things that, first of all, they would have checked the civil code and things like that. But also it would have been phrased slightly differently. There was this mention of a Tiffany Doe, and that would have probably had a declaration rather than this third party kind of stuff. But it was somebody who had some kind of knowledge. It wasn't just somebody who just, I want to sue, because it was typed. It was on the appropriate kind of paper. It wasn't handwritten or anything like that. There's no spelling errors that I saw when I looked at it fairly quickly. Somebody knew what they were doing when they did it. They kind of made it seem like, hey, let's make it look like an improper who's kind of smart. But it's kind of unusual to have it typed out on that kind of paper and everything with the lines. But this Tiffany Doe person, what was interesting about material witness Tiffany Doe fully confirms all of plaintiff Katie Johnson's allegation. because Tiffany Doe was physically present at each of the 4 occasions. And because it was her job to witness all of these sexual escapades of defendant Epstein's guests and then reveal all the sordid details directly to defendant Epstein. And defendant Epstein also demanded that Tiffany Doe tell him personally everything she had overheard at these parties, explaining to her that knowledge was king in the financial world. Now, in 2016, Epstein's running free. He's out there in the wild. Of course, we had the 2007, and his name's out there, but people aren't really talking about him. So it is interesting that what they've written here, knowledge was king in the financial world. It's kind of interesting. And they used what Epstein had done because there's talk about massages and stuff like that. So I think that they took stuff from 2006 and 7 then and applied it to this. So that part was very interesting. So it's somebody who had some knowledge, somebody who knew what they were doing in a sense. But it's also somebody, it sounds like, who could do a story. Because when I'd said, that Epstein's guests and later reveal all the sordid details directly to Epstein. In all of the things that we've talked about in Epstein, Epstein has never sat there and said, oh, tell me everything. I want to know everything. That's not what he did. He was a first-hand guy, not a second-hand guy. Now, there's a lot of stuff about the Katie Johnson stuff. And there's a guy named Norman Lubau, the former Jerry Springer producer, and he was up to his eyeballs in it. And when I read lines about it, reveal all the sordid details, I'm just thinking to myself, that sounds like a Jerry Springer kind of idea. So I spent so much time today looking at Norman Lubau, who, by the way, lives in the desert, doesn't live that far from 29 Palms, and has lived there for quite some time. So I went through every single one of his associates, every single one of his former roommates, everybody that I could find, everybody who was basically the right age to portray Katie Johnson, and just looked them all up, every single one. Tried to find pictures of them. Nobody really matched. And then there's the phone number, right? There is a phone number on the pleading. Most of the time it's blacked out. But if you guys go look, if you find the phone number, which I can't show because then YouTube will take it down, then maybe you'll be able to follow along, go back and listen to this, and you'll see what I saw. But the phone number had been talked about. Many people said, oh, it's a burner phone. Oh, it's traced to this guy. It's traced to this guy. There's a guy who worked for a Sacramento weekly paper named Rahim Hosseini. Now he works for the San Francisco Chronicle, but at the time he wrote for this Sacramento weekly paper, alternative weekly kind of thing. And he kind of dug into it several times over the years. And it's some really good writing. And one of the things that he wrote back in the day is 1 week after Johnson's lawsuit was filed, a judge for the U.S. Central District Court of California dismissed it for failing to cite an actionable civil rights claim. More troubling to those of us in the journalism field, the only identifying information available for Johnson proved inconclusive. Mail to her supposed 29 Palms address returned. Calls to her supposed phone number disconnected. But text messages sneaked through. At least mine did. Now, this is a guy, by the way, a very good reporter. He's not lying about any of this. I do think that he fudges something a little bit later, but not in a bad way. But so he's saying that he was able to text that phone number. He said, I exchanged a few with the person claiming to be Johnson. I was told to answer a phone call from a blocked number. When I did, I heard a man's voice offering the improbable, an opportunity to stop Trump from becoming president. He said there was something really off-putting about the guy, and I hung up. And 6 months later, in October 2016, he called again. You still want to talk to Katie Johnson? The voice, more than the question, burned through me. It was thick and duplicitous. It was sucking and sickeningly familiar. It was these things at this wrong hour to a son waiting for his mother to die. I hung up. Because while all this is going on, Rahim's mom is in hospice. And then he said, people other than me have supposedly communicated with Katie Johnson, including someone from the venerable cough. his words, Daily Mail. And I've read the interview. I've seen the pictures. To me, she looks a little bit like the person in the pixelated videos with a wig. Okay. But he doesn't seem to think that that's the same person at all. And he did a whole bunch of digging. He doesn't think that that's the person. He said Lisa Bloom, whose reputation has been severely tarnished by her work for Harvey Weinstein, with several videos purporting to show Johnson telling a piece of her story in a deposition to a therapist have been scraped from the internet. Said somebody sent me a still working YouTube link to a supposed Katie Johnson interview, which doesn't work anymore. He says, I feel no closer to anything resembling the truth. He said this particular video was uploaded on one day, accrued 58,000 views really quickly. Said it was property of Justice for Katie Legal Fund and Trust. The woman, her face blurred, speaks to someone off camera for 29 minutes. She sits beside a small side table in what appears to be a hotel room in front of a wide, heavy curtain that usually blocks a third-story view of a parking garage or something. It looks like she's wearing one of those shiny costume party wigs. You know, basically, this is what he found out. He hired a private investigator, and he used that phone number, the phone number that he said he was texting on, the phone number that's from the complaint. And he said that basically that the woman's name is Bethany, is a 29-year-old beauty person, like works in a beauty company, lives in Riverside County. And according to People Finder, these are his words, she's a Christian and registered Republican. And according to a criminal background check, she was convicted of possessing meth almost a decade ago with a couple of traffic infractions on either side of that. Okay. Well, the Daily Mail said that this woman, you know, had a felony possession of a drug and had a couple of DUIs. Now, he's not saying DUIs. He's saying a couple of traffic infractions on either side of that. I think he would have said DUI arrests. And he had pictures. He said her husband is tall and raw boned with a light bulb shaped head and heavy tattoo ink crawling up his long neck. Could Bethany's husband be the nameless man who tried to get me to bite? Now, his private investigator said that the phone number was registered to Bethany between July 23rd, 2011 and June 6th, 2019. That means the number belonged to her during the time that this reporter was receiving texts from it. And he asked the private investigator if you think of any reason these two shouldn't be the prime suspects. You can spoof phone calls from other people's phone numbers now. It's a relatively easy thing to do. But back in the summer of 2016, was it possible to forge text messages from other people's numbers? And the private investigator said, almost impossible. He said, I would think that the phone number would be the most likely to be factual for contact. Which means, according to the reporter, Bethany could be Katie Johnson and her husband could be the nameless man. Okay, well, you know, I'm going to spend some time Googling the phone number. So the first thing I did, right, put the phone number in. And you get, this is all on the first page. I didn't go, you know, look in page 2, page 3, page 4, anything like that. And what you get is you get the usual summary of it's the Donald Trump case and blah, 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 blah. You get case records that have been unredacted. You get the 29 Palms address. But on the first page of results, just randomly, like I said, everything else is just the case, Katie Johnson case, Katie Johnson case. That's all, right? That's all you see. And I wish I could show you what I saw. But if you go look at the phone number, put it in your Google, you'll probably see it. But if I show it to you, then Google just take it down. YouTube will take it down. But here's what you get. I got this name. We'll go with the first name. I think that'd be okay. First name is Marissa. And it says that she's 35 years old, was born in January 1990, and lived at this address, whatever, since 2017, which is remarkable to me because all of this happened as late as October, November 2016. And then remember, she didn't want to appear at a press conference, anything like that. And all of a sudden, this person in 2017, boom, new place and a new name. She just bails right after 2016. But it's like, why does this name pop up on this one page? It's so weird, but it's so out of place. And then I did the math. She was born in 1990. Okay. So remember, our reporter said that she got busted 10 years ago. And he said that at the time, 29. So she would have been 19. Okay. So there you go. This same woman would have been 19 years old at the time arrested for meth. It seems like a crazy coincidence that this person is the same age and shows up on the first page. So then I click like on the link to, you know, all those things where they have like true people search and all that stuff. She didn't live with Lubao or share any common people. And I didn't understand where to go, where to keep looking. Then I saw some associated emails, the strangest ones. Okay, 2 of them referenced cheerleading at a specific high school in California. To the point where you're going, okay, why do you have it like that? It wasn't a, you know, like a school email address, but it was referencing this particular school and a sport at the particular school, which made it seem like she had some kind of affiliation with the school's program. I cannot find a picture. Nothing. And in this particular program would have been, these people love taking photos. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing. It just seems so weird that somebody who has all of these emails every single time at AOL, at Yahoo, or whatever, all using the same thing, you can't find any pictures of this particular person at this program, at this school. It's like they were scrubbed. So then there was a third email. It's redacted photos at Gmail. The redacted is a first and last name or first and middle name, neither of which are Bethany or Marissa. That's really weird. Doesn't make any sense. You Google that, and there's like this 1-letter difference. So the one I wanted ends in an I. It's a name that has an I ending sometimes and one that has an E ending. No, sorry. It's like the middle name's Ann. We'll go with that. And one's like A-N-N, one's A-N-N-E. And the A-N-N-E brings up like the Hustler 2020-21 model, penthouse winner or something like that. So at least, you know, if you Google that, you can probably figure out the name. But it's like, why does this person have this name that's not related to anything else? It doesn't make any sense. So then I see this. I go to another place. Then I get Marissa, but a different last name. It's the same person, but now she's got a different last name than the one I got before. But when you click on it, front and center, was the same phone number used on the original complaint. So in addition to changing her name multiple times, her what looks to be ex, I don't think they're together anymore, also changed his last name several times too. And he now lives, it appears to be like in Idaho. And she's still in California at that house that she moved to in 2017. Now, the reporter said that the phone number was associated with her from 2011 through 2019. I show it as being associated to her from 2011 to 2016. And if anybody figures this out and goes and looks, see if you can find the 2019, but I believe it's 2016, which would definitely make more sense also in the whole scheme of things. Because obviously in 2016, it all came to an end and she tossed it. So is this Katie Johnson? And by the way, so if you, I'm going to have the Daily Mail photos interspersed here in this. It just, I can't find anybody who looks like that with these names. It's a very interesting thing. I mean, I feel like I have found Katie Johnson, the real Katie Johnson. And a reporter who did a lot of digging with a private investigator came up with the same information that I came up with, but he came up with the name Bethany. And I came up with the name Marissa. It's very, very interesting. Okay, you guys, that is it for this extra long one. I will talk to you later. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. So this is probably going to be part 31 and part 32 because I kind of want to take my time with it. Speaking of timeline, I would argue that Jeffrey Epstein's network might be the greatest scandal in American history. It's hard to wrap your head around the scope of it, the size of it. And whatever the nature of this network is, it has been for some time powerful enough to control presidents and politicians of both major political parties. Not just in the U.S., by the way, but we're focusing on the U.S. You've got Bill and Hillary Clinton, Democrats. Alan Dershowitz, Democrat for the most part. Bill Richardson, George Mitchell, Democrats. We got Trump, Republican. The sweetheart deal for Jeffrey Epstein was a purely Republican deal, negotiated and coordinated while George Bush was president and Jeb Bush was governor of Florida. And you had Alex Acosta do it, who later became, obviously, a cabinet member. The hardest part for everybody is like, let's just focus on the scandal. Let's focus on the bad stuff. The only thing I want to try and do here is show you that Trump, Epstein, the Clintons, and Maxwell are all closely related. In fact, I'm going to talk about something in a minute where it sounds like Ghislaine and Trump actually got together really, really early on. This is kind of, think about this as just kind of a reference, a timeline. It's not definitive. I would be here for days and days and days to talk about every little nuance and everything that happened on that particular day. This is what everybody needs to be looking at. The network predates Epstein by a long time. If you want a really in-depth, just go look at like Mint Press. So many articles and, that go back in time and explain everything if you need to see things in the written form. The network involves way more than blackmail of VIPs and politicians. It involves what the VIPs and politicians were, and used for, what they were used for. And we've talked about it before. The people that went to that island, it wasn't all just the girls. We got arms traffickers, drug traffickers. It's all about war profiteering, money laundering, financial markets manipulation, transnational organized crime. It just so happened to have all of that other stuff that goes with it. But everybody wants to be protected because they don't want to know that, hey, I was involved in money laundering, I was involved in, trafficking, whatever it is. And this transnational crime organization involves banks, the governments of many nations, bribery, the government's respective intelligence agencies. And the material that the VIPs are blackmailed with is way worse than just, embarrassing legal sex. It's worse than sexual assaults. I mean, this is kind of what's it about. Briefly, let's go back in time for just a second, because we're going to make this mostly about 1987 moving forward, because that is the established beginning of, say, Trump and Epstein's relationship. But prior to 1987, Roy Cohn, who was Donald Trump's attorney and close personal friend, died of AIDS in 1986. He was diagnosed with it in 1984. Donald Trump met Jeffrey Epstein around 1987. That is according to Donald Trump in a statement published by New York Magazine in 2002, when he said he had known Epstein for 15 years. This all didn't start when Bill Clinton hopped on an airplane with Jeffrey Epstein. It's not a coincidence that both Epstein and, say, other bad factors came into Trump's life not long after Cohen's death. Because Cohen kept everything out of the way. Cohen kept Trump out of trouble. So, although the previously referenced 15 years quote of Trump suggests that his relationship began with Epstein back in 1987, you can't really find any relationship. You can't find photos between Trump and the Clintons and Epstein until 1992. In May of 1989, specifically May 17th, 1989, there is a St. Louis Post-Dispatch clipping which describes a meeting on Robert Maxwell's yacht. I'm not sure why it was in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, but the meeting included Trump, Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, and John Tower. And you can see the St. Louis Post-Dispatch article. Said one thing about the party aboard British media mogul Robert Maxwell's yacht: everybody but everybody had to doff their shoes before boarding the plush carpeted Lady Ghislaine. Maxwell insisted and his guests cooperated, including Donald Trump, minus Ivana, who has a much bigger yacht and was happy to compare them with Maxwell. Guests sipped champagne, nibbled caviar flown in from Paris on the Concorde, and salmon served from the vessel's stores by shoeless waiters. There was John Tower, former senator and thumbed-down defense secretary, ex-Navy Secretary John Lehman, now with Payne Weber, lawyer Tom Bolin, literary agent Mort Janklow, UN envoy Thomas Pickering, Peter Calico, owner of the New York Post, Maxwell's daughter Ghislaine, and Max's niece Helene Atkin of Macmillan, the publishing house Maxwell recently took over. Maxwell, who weighs over 300 pounds, went over the guest list personally. No one could tell who didn't make the final invitation list, but we do know that Martha Smiglis of Time was invited and then disinvited. She wrote the profile of Maxwell for the mag, which he apparently did not like. And Robert Maxwell, John Tower. First thing you think of is Iran-Contra. Robert Maxwell was linked to the Iran-Contra affair by Seymour Hersh in a book published back in 1991. John Tower led the Tower Commission, which absolved President Reagan of any wrongdoing, put the blame on William Casey. And a day before William Casey was scheduled to testify before Congress on Iran-Contra, he suffered 2 seizures and was hospitalized. 3 days later, he underwent surgery for a previously undiagnosed brain tumor, did not survive. John Tower died in a plane crash in 1991. Robert Maxwell died at sea in 1991. That's a lot of deaths in a hurry, isn't it? Robert Maxwell's death is a whole nother story. But sometime in 1992, Trump and Epstein arranged for 28 girls to come to a calendar girl competition. In September of 1992, a realtor saw Jeffrey Epstein with girls who are probably underage at a New Mexico property. October 1992, Trump, Epstein, and Ghislaine Maxwell are together at a party in Mar-a-Lago. And then April 2nd, 1993, Tony August requests an introduction of Donald Trump to Bill Clinton in a letter. And in September of 1993, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were guests at a White House donors reception. They donated 10 grand, received a thank you letter from the White House, dated October 4th, 1993. And then in summer of 1994, there are 3 photos of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton at a fundraiser in New York. Good luck finding them. The Clinton Presidential Library has refused to release the photos. I don't know why. Now, in March 1995, Bill Clinton had dinner at home of Ron Perelman, and Epstein was there. Then there's a photograph of Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton at Trump's Plaza Hotel in New York. And the photo is about January 1996, because the person who took the photo said, "Oh, I took this about 20 years ago," and the post was from 2016. So you're thinking about January 1996. It's hard to figure out why they were there. Obviously, it's Eric and Don Jr. in the photo. And why Hillary's at the Plaza Hotel, it's interesting. And at different times, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump attended the Nutcracker Ballet in New York. Chelsea Clinton performed at the ballet in 1993 and 1996, in the years that she wasn't performing it in Washington, D.C. And according to Macaulay Culkin, Donald Trump attended the Nutcracker in 1988, where Donald introduced Macaulay to Michael Jackson. That's how Macaulay Culkin met Michael Jackson, through Donald Trump. Ivanka Trump also performed in the Nutcracker in both 1989 and 1990, and said that Michael Jackson attended one of the performances and her father arranged for Michael's ticket. And patronage and participation in the Nutcracker Ballet in New York is kind of a tradition in both the Trump and the Clinton families. Did Hillary and Bill travel there together? Trump liked to hold modeling contests with girls there at the Plaza Hotel as well. He did with John Casablancas in May of 1991. Another one with Ivanka in attendance in August of 1991. In January 1997, flight logs show Donald Trump on a flight with Epstein from Palm Beach to Newark, New Jersey, on one of Epstein's planes. And a May 1997 New Yorker article references Ghislaine Maxwell as flying on Trump's 727. In 1997, Trump and Ghislaine were hanging out a lot together. You can see these photos of them in October of 1997 at a Ford Model's 50th anniversary party. And sometime in the late 90s, according to Mark Epstein, Mark met Donald Trump on a flight from Florida to New York on an airplane belonging to Jeffrey, but it wasn't the 727. And that brings us to April of 1998. Jeffrey Epstein bought Little St. James Island. Previously, in January of both 1997 and 1998, the Clintons vacationed in the Virgin Islands. There's no evidence that you can find where the Clintons left the main island or that the Clintons' fondness for vacationing in the Virgin Islands influenced Jeffrey Epstein's purchase of Little St. James Island. In August 27th, 1998, Trump said that Paula Jones is a loser and that Bill Clinton should have exercised his Fifth Amendment rights. So that brings us up to the 1998 timeframe. It's a good place to stop because the next part is when we're going to get into the whole Virginia Roberts and that timeline and whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was banned in 1999 from Mar-a-Lago. We're going to get into so much more. But that's for next time, you guys. I will talk to you later. Let's continue with this timeline. And one of the things that I'm going to do in the next episode is because I'm glossing over some of the things that happened during this timeline that we haven't discussed. I know it's hard to believe that out of 32 episodes, there's things we haven't discussed, but there is so much still to go. But there are a couple of particular items, like I said, that I glossed over in the timeline that we'll go back to. Now, 1998, 1999, that's where we are. This is right after I said in the last episode that Trump said that Paula Jones was a loser. But we have Virginia Roberts. She's probably 14 or 15, working at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago. She's working in the changing room, that's what she said, when she was recruited by Ghislaine Maxwell to go to Jeffrey Epstein's home a few blocks away. Of course, she later filed a lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell. In addition to details of Virginia's employment at Trump's Mar-a-Lago, that suit also references later incidents with Prince Andrew and Bill Richardson and Alan Dershowitz and Bill Mitchell and others. In 1999, there is the origination of the incident, supposedly, where Trump later said he barred Jeffrey Epstein from Mar-a-Lago for an incident involving Epstein and a club member's daughter. In an article published by Gossip Extra on October 30th, 2016, of course, that's right before the presidential election. Also right about the same time that Epstein was going to Saudi Arabia. Vada Masavat referenced a book written by James Patterson, and the book itself seems to be the original source reference. On August 7, 1999, we have what appears to be a reference to Killary, listed on the flight logs of Epstein 727 from Teterboro, New Jersey to Palm Beach and back again. February 12th, 2000, there's a Mar-a-Lago party, and that's the one right here, Donald Trump and Epstein and Prince Andrew and Ghislaine all there. And the Washington Post said the occasion was a celebrity tennis tournament. The party was really close to Prince Andrew's 40th birthday, which he also celebrated a week later with his ex-wife and daughters in London. And I can never get over looking at the photo of Prince Andrew and those eyes. The dude was wired on something. And then on June 16th, 2000, Bill Clinton attended a fundraiser at Trump Tower for the Democratic Representative Ed Towns. And then September 8th, 2000, Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Melania, and Kylie Bax were at the U.S. Open. And they're really interesting photos because Trump introduces Clinton to Kylie Bax. But when they take the group photo, Melania is on Bill's arm. And Trump was with Kylie and Melania a few days before. And Donald didn't marry Melania until 2005. Now, the date I believe to be around late 2000, Virginia Roberts in an affidavit in which she sought to join a lawsuit against the U.S. with other Jane Does because the U.S. violated the Victim Rights Act by not letting them know about the non-prosecution agreement. Said that Bill Clinton was present on the island at a time when I was also present on the island. But I never had sex with Clinton, nor have ever claimed to have had such relations. I've never seen him have sex with anyone. She said one of that affidavit that her birthday was August 1983. And Virginia told the Daily Mail in 2011 that, I must have been, 17, 18 at the time. I flew to the Caribbean with Jeffrey, and then Ghislaine Maxwell went to pick up Bill in a huge black helicopter that Jeffrey had bought her. So by that math, she would have met Bill Clinton around August 2000. Further, she told the Daily Mail that Bill was joined for dinner by two girls. She didn't know how old they were, but her quote says, I'd say they were no older than 17. And although the location Ghislaine flew to pick then President Clinton up in her helicopter is unclear, the Clintons were reported to have vacationed in the Virgin Islands in 2000. There was a link which showed details of that 2000 vacation, but the Virgin Islands government has edited it. And further supporting the 2000 date in recently released documents which accompanied Virginia's suit against Ghislaine, she mentions the dinner as well and also said she met Al Gore. Then I met Al Gore and his lovely wife during one of those many weekends away in the Caribbean. One of the things that you can figure out sometimes when you're looking at redacted pages is a lot of people figured out Al Gore because you could compare things, and then by the number of letters and stuff like that, you could figure out who was the person. And Al Gore was reported to have returned from a vacation in the Virgin Islands on December 19th, 2000, which was 8 days after Anton Scalia and the Supreme Court voted 5-4 to stop the recount of votes in Florida, handing the White House to George Bush. And then in March 2001, that's the famous Virginia Roberts picture with Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew in London photo. And according to Virginia, the picture was developed on March 13th, 2001. And was taken sometime shortly before I had it developed. Around the end of 2001, Prince Andrew was on a yacht with naked women that were provided by Jeffrey Epstein. And February 9th, 2002 is the first of many flights of Bill Clinton on Epstein's 727. There's no point in going over all of them, but one in particular stands out, a May 25th, 2002 trip to Brunei. And Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump were all connected to the Sultan of Brunei in ways that don't appear to involve Epstein. And there's a picture of Bill and Jeffrey on their visit to Brunei. And there's a Free Beacon article that said the Clintons and the Sultan of Brunei have a history. The Sultan of Brunei was mixed up in the Iran-Contra affair somehow in 1986 with a banking issue that involved Oliver North, Elliott Abrams, and Citibank. In November 1988, Donald Trump said on the David Letterman show that he bought Adnan Khashoggi's former yacht from the Sultan of Brunei. And Trump said, I hate to admit it, actually it was from the Sultan of Brunei because it was security for a loan and a whole complicated thing. In 1997, the Sultan was sued by a former Miss USA who said she was held as a sex slave, and that the royal family used her. And the Sultan and his brother, Prince Jeffrey, have become infamous for their parties and their harems. In 2000, Bill Clinton traveled to Brunei with his daughter for an economic summit, which Vladimir Putin and Jiang Zemin, who was then China's president, also attended, and announced that his post-presidency would be about making money. And the government of Brunei donated to the Clinton Foundation somewhere in the range of about $5 million in 2002. In 2005, Bill Clinton returned to Brunei to thank the Sultan for his donation. In 2012, Hillary Clinton traveled to Brunei to meet with senior officials to emphasize the importance of the increasingly vibrant U.S.-Brunei relationship, which is basically just padding politicians' bank accounts. In 2003, Epstein had a dinner at his East Side townhouse in Manhattan. Donald Trump was reported to be there. The same report said Bill Clinton was supposed to be there, although he did not show. In January 2003, based on dates, Donald and Bill both attended the Gotham magazine anniversary party at Cipriani in New York City, although it does not appear that they were photographed together in any photographs that I can find. And then we come to, of course, November 15th, 2004, which we've talked about before, where Trump and Epstein bid on the same property in Palm Beach. Also, November 2004, Trump called Epstein twice, left messages at his home in Palm Beach. And of course, we talked about the fact that the Post noted that on November 28th, 2004, less than 2 weeks after the mansion auction, Palm Beach police fielded a tip that women were seen coming and going from Epstein's home. Note that the November 2004 date matches up well with what I said previously. That Trump said, I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years, and he made that comment in 2019. January 22nd, 2005, Donald Trump marries Melania. Hillary Clinton had a front pew seat at the Episcopal Church of Bethesda by the Sea in Palm Beach for the wedding. Bill came later to the reception in Mar-a-Lago. At this wedding, Paolo Zampoli said he was introduced to Bill Clinton by Huma Abedin. Paolo said he had met Bill many, many, many times. In 2005, Trump was quoted on the Mar-a-Lago webpage as saying that Hillary and Bill were a few of many celebrities who have enjoyed staying at the club. Another time, Trump said that although Bill and Hillary stayed there, he couldn't recall if they spent the night. If they did want to stay there or stayed there, it only shows that they have good taste. March 15th, 2005, the Palm Beach Police Department begins an investigation of Jeffrey Epstein after a complaint from a mother. In a Page 6 article dated October 14th, 2007, Mar-a-Lago Club in Palm Beach last night confirmed a website report that Epstein has been banned there. Epstein denies he's banned from Mar-a-Lago and says, in fact, he was recently invited to an event there. Okay. Remember, we don't have any photographs of Epstein and Trump after 2004. It defies the imagination that he was going to Mar-a-Lago in 2007. Just because of the fact that, number one, probably banned, and number two, he and Trump don't speak to each other after November 2004. November of 2007, Epstein planned an expansion on Little St. James Island, as reported by NBC News, based on permit request Epstein submitted to the Virgin Islands. June 14th, 2008, Trump, Clinton, and Rudy Giuliani and others golfed together at Trump National Golf Course. And Epstein began his sentence on July 1st, 2008. December 29th, 2008, Hillary Clinton for president has a $1,000 donation from Air Ghislaine, the travel service of Ghislaine Maxwell. In 2009, Ghislaine and Chelsea Clinton vacationed together on a yacht. In 2009, of course, we also have the Bradley Edwards statement, which we talked about before, saying that Donald Trump helped him out and gave him a lot of questions to ask. In June 25th, 2009, Bill Clinton and Donald Trump were back together again, this time at New York Police Athletic League dinner. July 31st, 2010, Ghislaine Maxwell attended Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Previously, on September 22nd, 2009, after leaving the Clinton Global Initiatives conference, Ghislaine was subpoenaed by victims of Jeffrey Epstein. She managed to avoid giving a deposition before showing up at Chelsea's wedding, and in fact, never did give a deposition. In December 2010, Prince Andrew's in Manhattan with Jeffrey Epstein after he completed his sentence in July 2009. December 19th, 2012, Clinton and Trump are hanging out again, this time at the Miss Universe contest in Las Vegas. Stuart Rahr and Michael Milken are also around. And together, once again, Trump and Clinton were both seated at Stuart Rahr's table, who was the guest of honor at the Make-A-Wish Foundation Gala on June 16th, 2013. The closest Donald Trump and Epstein seem to have come is on December 1st, 2013, when Trump's plane was photographed next to Epstein's Gulfstream at the Palm Beach airport. February 27th, 2015, Donald Trump, responding to a question from Sean Hannity about his thoughts on Bill Clinton, responded, "Nice guy. Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island with Jeffrey Epstein. A lot of problems." May 6, 2015, the Daily Mail reports that Ghislaine Maxwell's Terramar project is listed as a partner of the Clinton Global Initiative in the Sustainable Oceans Alliance. March 17th, 2016, Ghislaine Maxwell is ordered by a court to turn over any correspondence between her and Jeffrey Epstein to lawyers of Virginia Giuffre. April 26, 2016, we have the Katie Johnson, the first lawsuit. And then on October 19th, 2016, in their final debate, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have this exchange. Clinton, well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States. Trump, no puppet, no puppet. Clinton, and it's pretty clear. And Trump said, you're the puppet. And Clinton said, it's pretty clear you won't admit. And Trump said, no, you're the puppet. May 24th, 2017, Virginia Giuffre settled her lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell. And almost a year to the day, Joseph Recarey, the lead detective for the Palm Beach Police Department who worked on the Epstein case, died after a brief illness. No other information about the cause of death was released. July 3rd, 2019, a federal appeals court ordered 167 documents unsealed in Giuffre's lawsuit against Ghislaine. July 6th, Epstein was arrested. July 8th, 2019, a spokesperson for former President Bill Clinton said that Clinton knows nothing about Jeffrey Epstein's alleged crimes. Said that Bill Clinton has never been to Little St. James Island. July 9th, 2019, as reported by the Daily Beast, Alex Acosta told the Trump transition team that I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. Also July 9th, as reported by Vanity Fair, Trump said that Pecker had told him that the pictures of Clinton that Epstein had from his island were worse. July 12th, 2019, Ghislaine Maxwell's Terramar project closed. July 21st, a Politico article tied Ghislaine Maxwell to the Clinton Foundation. July 26, 2019, Epstein's pilots were subpoenaed. August 9th, 2019, the documents in Virginia Giuffre versus Maxwell were released. August 10th, Jeffrey Epstein died in his jail cell. August 10th, also, Trump retweeted, breaking documents were unsealed yesterday, revealing that top Democrats, including Bill Clinton, took private trips to Jeffrey Epstein's island. August 10th, Trump also retweeted Terrence K. Williams. It said, basically, how does that happen? Jeffrey Epstein died. Jeffrey Epstein had information on Bill Clinton, and now he's dead. August 10th, 2019, Attorney General William Barr announces an Inspector General investigation into Epstein's death. August 12th, the FBI raid Little St. James Island. August 14th, 2019, the Daily Mail reported that Ghislaine had been located living in Massachusetts. August 15th, multiple news outlets reported that Epstein's autopsy found broken bones in his neck. And August 15th, Forbes reported that Jeffrey Epstein spent at least 2 hours locked up alone with a young woman in a private room after he was taken off the unaliving watch. Okay, you guys, that is it for this one. I will talk to you
Imagine a world where the US government knows that children are being trafficked, and not just trafficked, abused, ritualistically and systematically. Imagine the victims testified, they named names, they provided evidence, flight logs, locations, dates, and photographs. Now imagine those victims who spoke up were silenced for doing so, and those they accused, well, they became even more powerful, or they simply disappeared. Far-fetched and hard to imagine, I know, but bear with me. Today, we're going to talk about a time when that happened. And not that time, another time that happened. The Franklin scandal. I'm King Trout, and this one isn't going to be fun. Let's begin at the top. Lawrence E. King Jr. wasn't your average credit union manager. He wore silk suits, and he hosted private jet parties. He even sang the national anthem at Republican conventions. King had ties to some of the most powerful people in the country at the time. He also managed the Franklin Community Credit Union, which was a small-time bank in northern Omaha, Nebraska, meant primarily to serve the local black community. Things got a bit fishy in the mid-'80s, since the credit union was handling $40 million in assets, and King was living like a Saudi prince. He reportedly spent approximately $10,000 a month on travel and entertainment expenses, had luxury clothes flown in from Europe, and rented multiple properties both in Omaha, Nebraska, as well as Washington, D.C. He was getting paid a salary of $16,000 a year at the time. A 1988 audit by the National Credit Union Association found massive discrepancies. There were missing funds, phony loans, shell companies, but the investigation, while looking for embezzlement, stumbled upon something much more sinister. In 1988, the Nebraska State Senate developed a committee to investigate the crimes committed by the credit union and by King. This committee was led by State Senators Loren Schmidt and Ernie Chambers. The committee investigated the financial crimes committed by the credit union and King until December 12, 1988, when Senator Chambers received an allegation from a source who has never been named, claiming allegations of physical and assault against children. Just a few days later, on December 19, 1988, members of the Foster Care Review Board stepped forward with more allegations they had received from children related to physical and assault tied to the credit union and the King himself. The committee hired an investigator, Jerry Lowe, a former Lincoln policeman, to investigate these claims. By July of 1989, Lowe had compiled a mass of secondhand evidence, primarily including witness testimony related to the accusations of abuse. He also found financial records that tied the Omaha chief of police with King, proving that he had spent time at one of King's properties in Washington, D.C. However, since this evidence was primarily secondhand, there wasn't anything physical or concrete, Senator Schmidt feared they wouldn't be able to make any convictions. So Senator Chambers stepped down, as did investigator Lowe. In August of 1989, the committee hired a former state patrolman, Gary Caradori, to handle the investigation. This is when things took a far darker turn. Caradori made it his goal to find potential victims who may have been too afraid to step forward on their own. One of the first accusers that he found was a man named Paul Bonacci. And before you even say it, I know technically that should be pronounced Bonacci, but Paul pronounces it Bonacci, so that's how I'm going to say it. Whatever, it's his name. Located just outside of Omaha is a place called Boys Town. It was once a symbol of American compassion. It was founded in 1917 as a home for at-risk youth. Multiple witnesses, however, including Bonacci himself, claimed that Boys Town was being used as essentially a recruiting ground. He claimed that he and other Boys Town kids were being trafficked out of the orphanage to high-level events. Not just creepy, eyes-wide-shut parties, but coordinated trafficking rings involving handlers, photographers, and people in very, very high places of power. There are accusations that the Boys Town staff were complicit with this, or at the very least, they were willfully ignorant. King had close ties to Boys Town. He made donations and reportedly visited frequently. Why would he do that? Now, Bonacci was diagnosed with what we now call dissociative identity disorder, but used to be called multiple personality disorder, likely because of the intense abuse that he suffered in his youth. Remember that, it will come up later. But he wasn't just ranting in vague terms. He gave specific details, names, locations, hotels, flight paths, rituals, clothing. He claimed he was taken to New York, LA, and Washington, D.C. to be trafficked. He claimed he was at parties with high-level businessmen and politicians. And he remembered a photographer named Rusty Nelson who allegedly documented all of this for blackmail purposes. In 1986, a 17-year-old girl and her mother filed a police report with the Omaha Police Department related to Rusty Nelson. They alleged that Nelson had approached the girl to take photographs for her for a European modeling portfolio. They went to his apartment, and over the course of the 5-hour session, he made inappropriate comments about the underage girl and attempted to convince her to remove her clothing. And the mother reported that while in his apartment, she had noticed photographs of nude individuals who she believed to be minors. During the interaction with the girls, Nelson claimed that he was self-employed, but also made reference to a man who he called the boss. 9 days later, the Omaha police went to Nelson's apartment and found that it had been entirely vacated. Now, what's interesting there is that the name on the lease of the apartment that Nelson was staying in at the Twin Towers building in Omaha, Nebraska, was in the name of Lawrence King. Not only did King rent that apartment, he also rented the penthouse apartment of the Twin Towers. Yeah, I know. It's low-hanging fruit. When asked about this, King claimed he had heard about the allegations against Nelson and had kicked him out of the apartment. When asked about King, the owner of the building claimed that he was very heavily involved in drug trade and had a penchant for young boys. Nelson was not indicted on these charges and disappeared for a few years, but don't worry, he'll come back. Of the accusers that Caradori found and interviewed, there were 4 in total who allowed for their interviews to be recorded. Those 4 were Alicia Owens, Danny King, Troy Boner, come on guys, serious topic, and the aforementioned Paul Benassi. Alicia Owen told Caradori that in August of 1983, when she was only 14 years old, she was approached by Troy Boner and another kid from Boys Town to come with them to a party on the penthouse floor of the Twin Towers building. This party, of course, being hosted by Lawrence King Jr. Alicia Owen stated that at this party, there were approximately 10 men and nearly triple that in children. And she went to multiple parties on the penthouse floor of the Twin Towers building over the course of the next few months. She alleged that she was abused by multiple men. She alleged in these interviews with Caradori that while at these parties, she was abused by Alan Baer of wealthy Omaha businessmen, as well as Harold Anderson, head of the Nebraska State Police. Remember these accusations, put a pin in them, we'll circle back around. When asked about the presence of satanic rituals, Owens stated there was a house in Leavenworth with a pentagram painted on the kitchen floor, and a man named King's Horses would lead satanic rituals in the house, all of which King Jr. would be in attendance of, as would Rusty Nelson, who was documenting it all. Next on Caradori's list of those to be interviewed was Troy Boner. The night before their scheduled interview, Troy called Caradori, and he was freaking out. He was very suspicious of Caradori and wanted to know in what way he was tied to law enforcement. Caradori basically told him, hey, let's not talk about this on the phone. We'll meet up tomorrow and we'll talk about it. During this interview, Troy corroborated almost all of the details that Alicia Owen had shared with him previously, including names, locations. Some of the dates were moderately different, though. He said that while living in Boys Town, he was approached by another young boy to go and meet the aforementioned Alan Baer. He said that he was abused by Baer and paid hush money. He also said that Baer shared a photograph of him with Lawrence King Jr., after which Lawrence King Jr. met with Troy in a different apartment in the Twin Towers building. He claimed that he was repeatedly abused by the men and paid hush money, essentially, and also that there was another victim that they should speak with, Danny King. The next day, Caradori and Troy picked up King, and the stories were all the same. a repeated cycle of abuse. He could name names, he could pinpoint locations. He was driven around town by Caradori, physically shown where these abuses had taken place. These witness statements were stacking up, and Caradori and Schmidt were unsure how to proceed because of how closely tied the alleged abusers were within the politics and policing of Omaha. They needed hard evidence to bring these men down. And that's when the victims suggested he go visit Rusty Nelson, the photographer who documented it all. In July of 1990, Caradori flew himself and his 8-year-old son in a single-engine plane to Chicago, Illinois, to meet with a confidential source. Now, that confidential source is not named in any official records, but Nelson himself claims that it was him that Caradori was meeting with. Caradori brought his son with him because after he met with his source, the two were going to attend the MLB All-Star Game being held that evening. After he met with his source, he made a phone call to Senator Lawrence Schmidt, claiming that he had everything that they needed. He had the evidence. That evening, he and his son attended the baseball game. After the baseball game had ended, they got back to their plane to begin their return flight to Nebraska in the early hours of the next morning. Can you guess what happened? Witnesses claim they saw a flash, and over Illinois, the plane disintegrated in midair. No flight recorder was ever recovered, and no evidence of mechanical failure ever surfaced. Apparently, all of the evidence was destroyed in the crash, because despite the fact that his son's backpack had been discovered by the fuselage, the briefcase that Caradori carried with him everywhere, which those close to him insisted he would have kept the evidence inside of, was never found. Gary Caradori's wife and Senator Schmidt were convinced he was assassinated, as was nearly anyone else who was following the case. The day after the plane crash, the FBI raided Caradori's office with subpoenas for all of the evidence that he had collected. The day after the plane crash, the FBI raided Caradori's office with subpoenas for all of the evidence that he had collected. The day after, the committee hired former director of the CIA, William Colby, to investigate the accident. Colby had been in a bit of hot water in the past for kind of letting the veil slide a bit on some of the things the CIA was up to. And allegedly, he warned Senator Schmidt to be careful what he looked into. He found no wrongdoing. Because of course he didn't. Shortly after Caradori's death, both Troy Boner and Danny King recanted everything that they had said. For no reason whatsoever, I'm sure. They claimed that Alicia Owen had told them to make it all up. The Franklin Committee was dissolved and a federal grand jury was convened. Despite the mounting evidence, reports from multiple victims, credit union reports, ties to Boys Town in D.C., the jury concluded that it was all a hoax, that the victims were lying. It was simple. No trafficking had occurred. None of the accused were ever convicted of abuse. There were only 2 convictions made by the jury. One to Lawrence King Jr. for the financial crimes he had committed. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And the other to Alicia Owens, one of the accusers. She was also sentenced to 15 years in prison, but she was convicted of perjury for refusing to recant her statements that she had made previously. She was called a liar and a perjurer and sentenced to 15 years in prison, despite the fact that none of her claims were ever disproven. Was Alicia Owens imprisoned to serve as a warning to any others who dared step forward? I don't know, but check this out. Bill Baker was a restaurant owner. He knew King and was allegedly partnered with him in his pornography operations. He was found dead with a gunshot wound to the back of the head. Sean Boner, the brother of Troy Boner, obviously, was found dead in 1991 with a gunshot wound to the head. Aaron Owen, Alicia Owen's brother, was found hanging from a ventilator in his prison cell in 1990. Claire Howard, Alan Baer's personal secretary, who had access to all of his personal schedules related to his visits with King Jr., mysteriously died in her sleep in 1991. Dan Ryan, an associate of King's, was found suffocated in his vehicle. Charlie Rogers, another associate of King's, was found shot in the head. Joe Malek, another associate of King's, was found with a gunshot wound to the head. Curtis Tucker, yet another associate of King's, was found. No, he was either thrown or jumped out of the window of a Holiday Inn. Harmon Tucker, a man who ran several vocationary schools in the Omaha area, was reported missing in 1989, and his body was found roughly 1,000 miles away with a gunshot wound to the head near a hunting property frequented by Anderson. And William Colby, the former CIA director who was hired by the committee to investigate the plane crash, well, one day he decided to go out on a solo canoe trip, and his body was found days later. Troy Boner, who earlier had recanted his story, attempted to reverse his recantation. He died in a hospital waiting room, allegedly screaming about being followed. What if it's all true? What if the Franklin scandal wasn't just about one man's crimes, but a vast network that spans over the police, politicians, the media, all attempting to cover up, this network of sex trafficking related to children, wherein they blackmail and manipulate each other for power, all while abusing children, committing horrific crimes, and getting away with it because of the institutional rot. Well, obviously not. The grand jury found him innocent. None of that happened. And it'll never happen again.
Coffee. Follow me.